to the first episode of Red Dragon Book Club. Today we're talking about Red Rising, chapters 1 through 5. Now a little bit of a preface on the world of Red Rising. It's about 500-600 years in the future from where we are now. Very advanced spacefaring society, and the site itself has been split into a color scheme. So gold is on the top, and every other color is basically stratified into a job, and and red, which is the color that Darrow is used to colonize Mars at the moment. And the opening scene of the book is Darrow's father being arrested and hanged by the society for performing a illegal dance. And following this, it flashes forward to when Darrow is 16. He's now a full helldiver of Lycos. They mine helium-3, which powers much of the kind of spacefaring nature of society, I believe, specifically the terraforming of planets. And the whole kind of backstory is that the Reds are preparing Mars for future habitation. And so they're working the mines. They basically are in like almost prison camps. They live very short lives and they die young. This chapter is also introducing Io, who is Darrow's wife. They're both married at 16, and introduces the fact that the Reds are a very raucous people, and they like to sing, they like to dance, which is kind of allowed by the prison guards or the Greys. But one song and one dance is forbidden, and that is punishable by death. And the dance is the one that Darrow's father was executed for doing. And these executions are public hangings, and there's a great quote in here. On Mars, there is not much gravity, so you have to pull the feet to break the neck. They let the loved ones do it, which is pretty bleak. I also think it's kind of a weird mercy that the family members are the ones who are kind of breaking the necks of their own loved ones to, end their suffering. There's a weird kind of mercy in that. There's a weird kind of power play from the society making them do it, I think. So, back to Darrow. So he is, he's a very talented helldiver, and he's done especially well, this quarter or whatever the distinction is. And he thinks that he basically thinks that he's done the most, and he and his clan are going to get extra rations, which is called Winning the Laurel, and that's presented at Laurel Tide. And his clan Lambda thinks they're finally going to beat the Gamma clan. But at the presentation, it's shown that Gamma wins again, regardless of the fact that Darrow for the Lambdas has actually secured more helium-3. And this really reveals to Darrow that the whole thing's corrupt, basically. Like he was kind of young and idealistic, and thought that because he had legitimately won it, he was going to be rewarded with the fruits of his labor, kind of thing. But Gamma wins again, as they always do, and this really, is the beginning of his kind of like awakening into the fact that they're kind of a slave colony. So Io, who has a surprise for him, takes him off to kind of a forbidden garden, because the Reds are basically not allowed anything, and they kind of spend the night together. They watch the sunrise, and as they're leaving, they're captured by the Greys, and this is obviously not good because the garden is off limits to Reds specifically. And when they're being kind of captured, the Greys are kind of egging him on and trying to get him to hit them, because this is punishable by death. It's basically attacking your prison guards, kind of thing. And Io in the garden has been speaking kind of very effusively about how they're kind of trapped, and how like the people would follow Darrow if he like stepped out, but he's basically saying, well, if I do this, then we're all gonna die. So like, what's the point? Like, why would I do this? My father died for this. Like, this isn't a worthy cause, kind of thing. And so he doesn't fight the Greys when he gets taken, even though Io is kind of like pushing him to do it. And because in his mind, he's kind of thinking, we're just gonna get lashed for this. Like, the worst thing they're gonna do is lash us, and I can take that, at least we'll still be alive. What he doesn't realize is that Io has other plans. And so he, is dragged before the whole kind of community and is lashed 48 times. and as his wife Io is then, you know, replacing him and is beginning to be lashed. She's lashed 13 times, but then she begins to sing, and she is singing this forbidden song. And in the crowd, there is the Arch-Governor of Mars, who has kind of, you know, attended the punishment of Darrow and Io, because it's fairly rare that they get a helldiver to punish, and so they're kind of making this a very public thing, and it's being it's being videoed and projected to the wider colonies by Holocaust. And so she's singing this forbidden song in front of the Arch-Governor, which you're obviously not supposed to do. But he allows her to continue singing, and then mocks her when she's finished. And the end of chapter 5 kind of closes on the Arch-Governor basically saying that she needs to be executed. And it's great, you know, I think it's a great opening. I think it really sets the scene, you know, it sets kind of where Darrow is and what he thinks about the world. Like, he's fully of the belief that him and his fellow Reds are, you know, pursuing a worthy cause by preparing Mars for the coming of the rest of humanity, basically. And that they're at the very beginning of colonizing the solar system, and, you know, that his sacrifice and his family's sacrifice is for a worthy cause. And so yeah, it ends on the pronunciation that Io is going to be put to death, which obviously is not what Darrow wants, and it kind of really highlights this powerlessness that he has and is really beginning to feel. I think a few things that are worthy of note in these chapters is that Darrow credits his uncle Narrell and the dance lessons that he has been given by him as one of the things which kind of teach him to move so well. And there are multiple references to Darrow being like very dexterous and having, you know, very quick hands, which you need to have to be a helldiver. I think that was a great bit by Pierce Brown. The whole book's by Pierce Brown. By the society letting Gamma win every time. He's quoted saying, "Yet despite the disappointment, some part of us doesn't blame the society, we blame Gamma." I think there's a really interesting psychology in there, in that if everyone was downtrodden, you know, you're much more likely to get a revolution. But by having one clan that is consistently kind of elevated above the others, then it turns kind of neighbor against neighbor and brother against brother in a way that kind of releases some of the tension, and so kind of makes it less likely that this whole kind of colony is gonna rise up against the you know, the society kind of thing. And there's some great quotes in there, I think, to talk about kind of the thing I was saying about the fingers is to be a helldiver, they say your fingers must flicker fast as tongues of fire, mine flicker faster. It also gives the first instructions to the Sons of Ares, who are basically a terrorist organization. Darrow says the Sons think that we are mistreated, so they blow things up. It is a pointless tantrum. Any damage they do delays the progress of making Mars ready for the other colors. It hurts humanity. So you kind of get a sense of his worldview here. And also the effectiveness of the kind of, you know, propaganda that the society pumps out via holocam. There's a great quote that Io says to him while they're in the garden, that death isn't empty like you say it is. Emptiness is life without freedom, Darrow. Emptiness is living chained by fear of loss, of death. I say we break those chains. I think it's a really powerful message that even, you know, Darrow is kind of afraid of death and is willing to accept a life on his knees in order to kind of not achieve, you know, death in the short term, whereas Io is kind of saying that while we risk death in revolting and kind of breaking the chains, that this is something that is worth doing, because to live a life on your knees is low life at all.